Good evening. My name is Joe Sam Robinson. It's my pleasure to have with us tonight, once again, the redoubtable Dr. Buck Melton. Welcome, Buck.
Hello.
Welcome. I don't know if you have any wisdom for our large audience tonight. Do you want to make any comments to share with them?
Our most recent discussion was about science fiction, so I will sort of stay with that theme for a minute. I'm not sure, was it Asimov or Arthur C. Clarke who said there are only two possibilities. We are alone in the universe. We are not alone in the universe. Either possibility is equally frightening.
Okay, on that note. Well, we have a lot to, there are many things to discuss. One thing that you could say is a sort of an amusing American drama being played out now when the two presidential candidates are both visiting the Rio Grande and making comments about the illegal immigrants that have flooded into the country and what does that mean, what's going on. And I think the Democrats say, well, the Republicans had the chance to solve this crisis and thus it's all their fault. And the Republicans say, well, the border's been open ever since President Biden came in. They each seem to say the Republicans say to the Democrats, you want all these voters to come in, they're going to be your constituency in the future, and thus the complexion of the country will change, and it'll be more of the Democratic Party type of country. And the Republicans say, well, the Democrats say about the Republicans, you really want these immigrants to continue to come, because you guys are capitalists and there's cheap labor for you, and when they work, they don't really they don't take any money out. They just work very, very inexpensively, and so that's a sort of a comment. And I will say I will make this statement along these lines about what's going on with these illegal immigrant situation. Is that I think in this part of the country, surprisingly, there are a big number of such people are here, and they work off the books, which is the way it happens. And then many of them who don't speak English find themselves doing rather dangerous jobs. They're injured in doing this work. And they wind up in my care, many of them grievously injured, and the system, it's a very sad story. They came, they're desperate for work, they do dangerous jobs, they're injured, there's nothing they can do, they're stuck, and there's no safety net for them, and it's a bad story. So it is, to me, I just to toss this out, it's a substantial moral dilemma. And I will start out by asking this question. I mean, we have these many people that come in. Is there any kind of law that you're aware of that says if a person comes to the U.S. for whatever reason, they just show up, they jump off a boat, they swim to shore, I'm here, and I demand sanctity. I demand you accept me, because I need a place, and the government, the American people, then say, well, right, yeah, it's a law somewhere on the books that says that anyone that shows up in the country from however, they then stay here and they then get processed through this arcane arrangement that goes on for a decade. Is there such a law? Why? I mean, I won't say that it's a bad idea necessarily to do this, but is there some kind of law that everyone agrees on that this is, it would seem to be that comports with a moral country? We let anyone in that needs a home. Is there such a law? Do you know of one?
I'm not sure I follow. I mean, there are asylum laws.
Is there an asylum where you can just, in other words, you have to grant asylum?
Well, you don't have to. I think there are quotas there, and if you're coming from a bad situation, and it's an extremely complicated area of law. I don't specialize in it, but if you're coming from a place where you're a persecuted minority, religious minority, or ethnicity, then special provisions made for you. I don't think anybody has an automatic claim to get to stay here. They've got to show that their life would be in danger or something coming back.
There is some kind of, but what I'm getting into is, unbeknownst to most people, there's some kind of legal structure has been created that allows that process to take place. And what exactly the process is not known particularly. And the story is, it's pretty confusing. I'm going to each of the presidential candidates say, well, I can stop this, I will stop it, and I've got the power to do so. And am I going to exercise it or not exercise it, or not enforce laws? And so I've heard it said that laws are on the books now, they're just not being enforced. Also, there are hundreds of sanctuary cities, hundreds of them. And presumably, if somebody can get to such a city, then they're protected, and their children are born here. They're
technically not. I mean, a sanctuary city essentially means that city government has instructed its law enforcement and other executive officers not to report any illegal aliens to the federal government. They are not able to block federal immigration law, but they, by declaring themselves sanctuary cities, they say they are not going to.
And how would people, actually be discovered? How would that happen?
Well, that's it. The vast majority of law enforcement officers in this country are at the state and local level, and there are relatively speaking very few federal officers, and I'm talking FBI, DEA, Border Patrol, ICE. There's just not many of these people. You'd want to rely on state agencies to the degree that they are willing to serve as ancillaries to the immigration process.
And in fact, if they don't, it also would attract people. Recently the tragedy that happened in Athens, quote, sanctuary city, whatever that means, and do people really understand what? Maybe you've explained it. What is a sanctuary city? How does that happen?
Yeah.
And I think
it's not like sanctuary like in the medieval world. If you could make it into the church, you're safe. A city does not have the constitutional authority to tell the feds you cannot come in here and arrest illegals.
And I think there's sort of the wink thing about we're not going. If you have a traffic ticket, we're certainly not going. We're not going to pursue legality of why you're here or not here, and as a result, really huge numbers of people are here. And I'll make a comment as what I understand the way that Clark County, Athens, turned itself into a sanctuary city was a very nebulous, like the council said, we welcome people from all over the world and we'll treat them kindly, or something. Who wouldn't object to that? Yes. It wasn't like any illegal immigrant that shows up here will, number one, never be reported. It wasn't anything like that. So a lot of the sanctuary city, language is pretty nebulous, but it serves its purpose. And so most illegal immigrants, would not be frightened of local police turning them in, or would they? I don't know.
That's what they're trying to say. They're trying to convince illegals that you can trust us, you can trust us. Now, of course, I being a native-born United States citizen, if I got in trouble in Clark County, I'm wondering if they would send my fingerprints to NCIC to see if I've done something wrong.
Sure, they would.
Then there would be an equal protection problem, it seems to me. So,
that's so that they don't really pursue people. And then one other comment I'll make is that, as I understand it, I think I'm on shaky ground with this, we see many illegal immigrants in the hospitals in Macon, many of them, and they come to the emergency room, and it's very appropriate to minister to their afflictions. That's the only place they can get treatment, really. They don't have money, they're sick, they can come there. and then they will be treated no matter what. And the other thing is, I understand it, their immigration status is never questioned, and there's some kind of federal regulation that not happen, with the correct idea being, well, if we ask people about their immigration status, they would not seek health care. Mm-hmm. So we want them to seek health care, and that would be mean if we didn't do that. Yes. So in general, the process by which these millions of people that are here could be identified and presumably sent back is non-existent. How many people actually have been discovered for whatever reason in Georgia that somehow they've been nabbed? They go to, I guess, displacement camps. There are barbed wire around them, and then the bus, armored caravan they take them across the Rio Grande. I don't think there's any appropriate mechanism to deal with it. It's in place. There's not. I mean, there's just not here. Once you cross into the country, I guess the only way that something would happen would be if you killed someone or you committed a crime. I could be wrong on that, but that would be the only thing that would happen. And if you were trying to work, these very nice people, very unfortunate people that are injured doing this dangerous work, then nothing is done to them, although they've been they're in a bad situation. I'd like to give them some more help than they can receive.
Yeah, and I think that's what I continually try to emphasize. It's not a jingoistic type of thing. These people, in a sense, are today's true American, because they're the ones who are taking the risk. They are coming to the different culture. They are doing the jobs you and I would not be willing to do, and they're doing it for a lot less. In the aggregate, they can contribute a tremendous amount to the economy. But we have to look at it from a national security perspective, from a long-term demographic perspective. Are we going to change them as America has traditionally tried to do to immigrants, or are they going to change us? And if they're going to change us, are they going to change us into something better or worse? And I think that those are legitimate questions to ask.
Well, yes, and the number is so extraordinary, and it's also said, well, that all their children are going to be American citizens, and thus, how can you send grandmother back to whatever, she's been here 40 years? And yes. So there is not the national will to do anything about it.
That's the word. That's it. For some reason, I think there is a political will, but I think this perhaps may be the biggest or one of the biggest disconnects between the American people and their representatives in Washington, that the leadership of neither party is interested in enforcing even current immigration law, much less getting stricter with it.
Though, I mean, to really appraise what's going on, there's so much smoke and mirrors, it's difficult to say, but some of the points I might make are, number one is the money that's sent out of the country. And so let's say you're a very meritorious person here, you're hard at work, you're really here's an American passport right now. You're such a great guy or lady, you're working hard, you're the kind of person we want in the country, and that noble person naturally would send every penny they could come up with back to their village and then support their families there. And that impact on the money leaving the country going elsewhere is a pretty substantial number that has an impact on the national economy, on the GNP. If the money stayed here, if they said, great, you cannot send any money out of the country. You have to spend your money here. You have to buy a car here. You have to do this. You have to do that. And you get the multiplier effect of the money. But that's not happening, or who knows how much it's happening. But that discussion never occurs. Another thing, I think you correctly said it, are we going to change them or are they going to change us? And I think it's both, actually. And is it to our advantage? It certainly changes, I think, what it's like to live here. and for many reasons. I mean, whatever the national psyche is, the national identity, and many people would say that's good. So not really totally being a European country. That's quite a thing. I mean, we're sort of like we're in a different place. And that, I won't, maybe there's nothing bad about that, but that's, I don't know if people have accepted that. And I think a lot of the tension that we see in the electoral process is referable to that. I really think the real difference between Trump and Biden is that Trump supporters they want it to be a traditional country and the ethnicity of the country to reflect a European heritage and values. And the Biden people.
Well, I would say Anglo-Saxon because remember, there's a lot of Spanish blood coming north, and Spain, the last time I checked, is European. So.
Well, just so. However, I would say that a lot of the cultural transmissions that have taken place, maybe I'll tighten the language up a little bit, but that people have their connection, and a strong one, in Europe and Western Europe, and indeed the genetic contribution that the Castilians made to all of Latin America for many reasons is it's a different process by which that genetic infusion happened than in the 13 colonies. It was a different deal. I would say that, and how people respond to these changes is a big deal, and also the sense of national unity. I mean, that really, if people are going to struggle for the country in some ways, and they all speak different languages, and they all have different viewpoints, and indeed they mistrust one another. It's said in many ways. We need diversity. In fact, that's one of the big deals. Diversity, diversity, diversity. Well, why is diversity so great? Let's explore that. What's so great about diversity? Well, presumably it'll make you wiser. You'll understand the world more than you would from a limited position, and you could get new insights. So there's some good things about it. But there also, another part of that is that if people are in any way different than you, just the way the brain works, you say you're different than I am. There's a DNA distance between us, and therefore I'll be suspicious of your motives, and it makes a coalition around a national ideal more difficult. That'd be my thought about it. And the country has handled this in the past correctly or well enough, I would say. They've been gradually going through some kind of gradual change, and we're accepting different people, whatever, 1, 2, 3, they accept us, they speak English, we have a lot of similarity, they play baseball, they eat hamburgers. There's a lot of connection, and the process was relatively slow one. Now we're having a pretty big one, and with the other point here being the way that the homogenization, or if you want, or the melting pot took place, is that people would go, there'd be, I don't know, people that might live in Fort Wayne, Indiana. There'd be some people from Greece, some people from Canada, some people from Canada or Saipan or wherever they're from. They'd all be tossed in there together, and maybe they would melt. But if you have sanctuary cities where no one speaks English in this particular place, and then we really don't feel part of the nation. It's could be a problem.
I think you overstated a little bit. I mean,
deliberately, somewhat, to get some response.
Well, I mean,
I have overstated it.
The one I like to trot out is that in 1862, 25% of the population of New York City had been born in Ireland.
Yes.
There was a lot of Gaelic there. There was a lot of cultural clashing going on there. And I just picked that up as an example. I mean, you can look at the same sort of thing, the ethnic violence between the Germans and the Poles. And
they spoke English. They're Christians, whatever. I know they're different, But the country seems to have had enough time to go through that. There's been,
Well,
if we have too much of an immigration shock now,
Yep.
can the country, in 1862, there were a lot of issues that took place with the Irish, a lot, and
Well, the difference is that back then both transportation and communication were glacial by comparison, and that crossing that ocean cut those ties. Whereas the Rio Grande is not an ocean, and you've got instant bank accounts and cell phone connections. So you're not cutting the ties anymore from a country 3,000 miles away across an ocean. It's across something about as big as the Mulga River.
Yes.
That's a very porous border in both directions,
Right.
And that's just a different type. Now I will say, once again, to look at it from the other direction, you know, of course, the story of how we, the United States, got the American Southwest to begin with.
Well, that's right.
Through this unrestricted immigration that is now being practiced on us.
You mean going to Texas?
What?
You're going,
Yeah,
the big thing was Texas. There were very few people there, a very small number of people, and true enough, the people swarming in from Europe and the eastern seaboard going west. There are more ways that happened, but certainly it happened in Texas, and which brings up, you correctly say, well, now the tide has turned, and those, I think, Mexican people would say these are conquered provinces. These provinces were stolen from us.
When I was in graduate school, a friend of mine, he was taking time off. He was an attorney in Mexico City, but he was taking some time off, going to graduate school here in America. And he once told me very seriously, without any rancor at all, but just very earnestly, that the American Southwest, we consider that to be our territory, and we're going to have it back someday.
Well, I think, has that point been raised? In other words, presumably, just to make this point, it would seem that we're nice people. We like to say we're nice, and we're particularly ashamed of the fact that we didn't let Jewish refugees in from Nazi Germany. There was the ship loaded with Jewish refugees. We wouldn't let it land. Send them all back to Nazi Germany. They'll all go to the gas chambers. We're not letting anyone in. And I think that's some of the marker that took place. And so I was earlier asking about where our asylum arrangements happened. How did all that happen? I think that might have been the linchpin for that. Also, I think after World War I, the immigration quotas were put in, and then in '65 or so, Teddy Kennedy changed that. There's a lot of story about it.
Yes.
But the issue about coming here is a big deal, and I don't think that. In other words, if someone's coming as a refugee from Hungary, let's say, something terrible's happened to them, and I'm a minority of some type, and they're going to kill us all. And if you send me back to Hungary, I'll be killed. Well, that would seem to be the case. And of course, our doors are open, and we learned, and we're ashamed of what happened before World War II. And we never. Now, having said that, that's maybe our impulse, but the situation is on the other side of the street. If you have millions and millions of people that are crossing the border, that they're coming for economic reasons, I would say, and they don't. I'm going to throw my Mexican passport in the dustbin. That doesn't happen, does it? And they can preserve there's no downside to this. You could say, well, the immigration situation could work pretty well if you surrendered your earlier pay. You're an American, that's all you are. You're not anything else, and you're going to make a huge emotional sacrifice to come here. This is your country now. You're not. You can visit, but that's not the case.
I hate to quote John F. Kennedy, but ask not what your country can do for you.
Yes.
And that doesn't seem to be a very popular idea right now.
Well, so I mean, there's good things and bad things with this, but certainly it is a huge, big deal. And you could say this: well, is it the 10 million people or so that have come here? Has it been good for them? Let's just look at that side of it. Is that good for them personally that they're here? And many of them have a hard time. They're sleeping on whatever it is, I don't know, in bus stations. It's pretty tough. The weather's cold. They're cut off from their earlier life. But in general, I think most people are happy they came. And relatively, it does happen that people go back, but I think relatively few. And so most people, let's raise your hand if you're happy that you're here. And there are 10 million people. Yes, yes, yes. Do you ever want to go back? I want to visit. If I make a lot of money, I may go back and buy the biggest house in the village, and I would have done what I needed to, or something. I mean, that's possible. But then if you ask American people what they think about it, I don't think they have a clear understanding of what's up. Though I think it was a very telling thing to watch on television recently. When the illegal immigrant from Venezuela allegedly murdered a young nursing student, okay, and then the mayor, who seemed to be an avuncular, pleasant person, was trying to say we want to be nice to everyone that comes to Clark County, and the people yelled at him, "This is an invasion." Is it an invasion?
Let's talk about that word for a minute. And once again, this is a sort of loaded word, like another big loaded word right now, insurrection, in a different context.
Right.
But I do remember the fresh-faced young kid from Mercer getting to Duke and reading in the catalog about.
Is that the way you would describe yourself? Not as arrogant horse riding,
probably that too,
creature of the Deep South. No.
But reading the catalog of the first half of American History Survey, which documents the European invasion of America.
Yeah, they use the word.
And to this day, I still ponder that, because I think of I still think of invasion as a much more time compressed, coordinated, and militaristic sort of thing, but maybe not. So
well, I mean, we don't have much time left, but I will say great movements of people have been the normal course of our species on the planet.
It's been the major source of major demographic shifts.
One group
certainly
moves in and indeed takes the possessions of another one and marginalizes them. And actually, in a really difficult period, one city-state would attack, they'd fight, and the victorious city-state would destroy all the male population of their defeated city and turn everyone into basically slaves. They would take the women, they'd whatever it is, abuse and sexually molest the women, and that was the common thing that happened. And so when different groups of people are in conflict with each other, one group is taking the other possessions, etc. I think it's the start of a conversation about what the word invasion means. And actually, I have to say, thinking about the Europeans coming to the New World, that's not a wrong word. I would say that's a correct word. And it's not commonly used. And I think it's obviously whoever put that in the manual served its purpose by stimulating you for many years to reconsider the European arrival in the New World.
And I think in that sense, certainly what we did to the American Southwest counts as an invasion. And you see the same pattern over and over again. You saw it in East Florida, you saw it in West Florida, you saw it in Louisiana, you saw it in Texas, you saw it in California, that lacking any defined or even agreed upon political boundaries, the hunters and trappers would go out, they'd see this wonderful land, they'd come back with their skins and their furs and say, you ought to see that land out there. And so the squatters would then go out, and then the small settlements would turn into villages and towns, and more people would show up. And at that point, Spain or Mexico or whoever would start getting nervous about, hey, where did this city of foreigners come from on our territory? And they would speak up about it, at which point this squatter settlement would start screaming to Washington, help, help, we're being attacked. And then there would be a war or a treaty carried out against a background of force, and suddenly we would annex all of this vast new territory. So it wasn't primarily military. It was just, we win it in the bedroom, not on the battlefield.
Which many wars are won that way.
Yes.
And on that note, thank you, Buck, once again for a stimulating session.
Thank you, sir.
Complicated subject. Thank you.
This program is brought to you by the Georgia Neurosurgical Institute. For over 50 years, rendering neurosurgical care to patients of all social conditions, treating complicated problems involving the brain, spine, spinal cord, and peripheral nerves, endeavoring to encourage quality care, medical research, innovation, and education on a local, national, and international basis.